Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Conference championships start tonight, Tony. When's the last time you competed for a major title?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Just last week, Sexy Sports Writer magazine left me off of its 80 under 80 list. What do you think of that?
I wouldn't think you could miss that one, but okay. All right.
You know, I'll just say this. I wish there was a magazine called Sexy Sports Writer. I think that's funny. I don't know how much it would sell, but I admit, I think that's pretty funny. I know you'd be on the list. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, conference championship games. The Chargers tried to take out the Chiefs, and Urban Meyer says he's through with coaching. But we begin today with the Detroit Lions going on fourth down 5 different times last night against Green Bay and converting 4 of those times, including a 4th and inches very late in a tie game. The Lions went despite the relative ease of a field goal that would have given them the lead with about 40 seconds to play, but would have given the ball back to Green Bay. Making that 4th down enabled Detroit to run the clock and kick the winning field goal for a 34-31 win as time expired. Wilbon, what did you make of Dan Campbell's decision to keep going for it?
Tony, wow. I mean, as his quarterback said after the game in a press conference, so he said it publicly, his coach has a pair, and he does. I mean, and it's not just the coach. The coach knows he has a team that can deliver. The team knows it has a coach that will back the group of guys in that locker room. And sometimes teams are actually good enough to make this work, at least for a while. And the Detroit Lions are in that window. I know it became fashionable for the people up and down I-95 to say that the Philadelphia Eagles were the best team after they won last week. That's great. They can say that if they want to. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL. I would take them ahead of the Eagles. I'd take them against Kansas City right now. And it's that coach's personality, Tony. It just fits. It's their time. I told you yesterday, they're going to play a team that maybe they're that much better than. I know I held up fingers yesterday, and that's the way it turned out. And let me also say, I think more of Green Bay for the way they conducted themselves last night. Yeah. And the one team that Detroit wouldn't want to play in a playoff game is Green Bay. Like the one team Georgetown didn't want to play in the tournament was Villanova, the neighbor who knows you, who you've already beaten up on a couple of times. But it may not come to that. But Detroit's in that place, and when Campbell says we're going for it and that's how we're going to do it, that's what that team can do now.
So I'm not going to disagree with any of that. But I will begin with this. Like many people, I thought Dan Campbell was a clown when the Detroit Lions hired him, with all that stuff about biting kneecaps. All that stuff about biting kneecaps. Clearly, I was dead wrong about Campbell. It is obvious to me, as it is obvious to you, that the members of that team love this guy. They would march into hell with this guy. He is a large man, a football player, and an obvious leader. He goes on 4th down more than anybody in the league. He got 2 touchdowns out of it last night, but I was aghast when he went for it, when you just kick the field goal. All you have to do, Packers have no timeouts. They're going to have to go at least 50 yards in about 20 or 30 seconds. And I'm wrong about this again, because they handled it right out of the manual. It was right out of a textbook thing. Mike, I hate the term culture, but I have to concede that Dan Campbell has built a winning culture in Detroit, and I find myself rooting for them now. I said yesterday that I thought the Lions would win, and I didn't think it would be this close. I didn't think it would be 3 points at the end of a game. But Mike, to me, it felt like a convincing victory because of the way they responded to their coach up and down the line, and I like them. Yeah. I do.
It's what, Tony, it's what they've done now for a couple of years, to win 12 games again, twice, when the franchise had done it once in forever. You know, Tony,
50 years.
It's their time, right? I mean, some other team's going to have to come and take it from them. It feels like it's their time. Again, I think maybe only one team may get in front of them or get in their way, and I don't think it's the Eagles, and I don't think it's Kansas City. I told you I think it is, which would be, wow, that would be something to see them matched up one more time. Let's move to college football. Tomorrow night's Big Ten Conference Championship features third-ranked Penn State facing number 1 Oregon in Indianapolis. Oregon's unbeaten. and has been at the top of the polls for 6 weeks. Tony, it seems like we've talked about everyone but the Ducks this season. So I'm just asking how much less you might think of Oregon if the Ducks were to lose to Penn State tomorrow night.
I would think a lot less of them. And I want to be very clear. I would not think a lot less of them if their opponent was Ohio State. Because Ohio State, had they beaten Michigan, would go into this game 11-1. Their only loss would have been at Oregon by 1 point. So that if Ohio State knocked them off on a neutral field, I would be fine with that. But if they lose to Penn State, are you kidding me? Who has Penn State beaten? They have beaten one ranked team all year, Illinois, which is now ranked 21st, and they beat them in Happy Valley. I think we all remember when Penn State got ready for the Ohio State game in Happy Valley. It's a complete whiteout. It's 110,000 people, and they don't even score a touchdown. The biggest game of the year, and they don't even score a touchdown. So to me, honestly, if Penn State were to beat them, that would diminish Oregon to me. But here's the great kicker, Mike. If Penn State does beat Oregon, and if Texas loses to Georgia, Penn State will go into the playoffs as the #1 seed.
It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable, Tony. The only reason why I entertain it and say, wow, that might be important, is because there's no great team in college football this season, unless maybe it's Oregon. There's no great team. Everybody has suffered at least one loss where you go, what? They lost that game, even Ohio State, one loss, but that game they lost. Penn State was impotent at home. A game where you say, if you're Penn State, okay, we never win. Our coach was criticized because he never wins a big game. We're playing on this stage, a whiteout, 107,000, blah, 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 blah. And it was just hype. It was a waste of time game. It is the game. It is the result I was most disappointed in this season. That Penn State didn't really even defend its home field well. But they got this chance now. They got this chance to play against Oregon. And if they somehow win that game, Tone, like you said, they're going to wind up 1 or 2 in the final going into the playoff.
Small correction, Ohio State does have 2 losses. They got Oregon, and, of course, they do have Michigan.
That's right, yes.
Let me go back on this. This is the downside to me of these bloated conferences, of conferences with 14 and 16 and 18 teams, that you don't play everybody. That is an uneven schedule. I don't really know. If Penn State got to be #1, they would be a stealth #1 because nobody knows anything about them. They haven't played anybody.
Paper champion.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Let's stay with college football and concentrate on 2 lesser conference finals. In the Mountain West final tonight, Boise State will play UNLV on the blue turf in Boise. In the ACC final tomorrow night, SMU will play Clemson in Charlotte. Wilbon, which of these higher-seeded teams is more likely to lose? And if they lose, what then should happen?
Well, you're playing Clemson on a neutral field, you're more likely to lose. I mean, period. I mean, that's Coach Clays. You're playing at home on the blue field. If you're Boise, you shouldn't lose that game. You're not going to lose that game. You already played a close game against UNLV at UNLV, but you won that game. You've also had maybe the most impressive. The two most impressive losses of this season are Ohio State at Oregon, and
Boise State at Oregon. Yep.
Those are the 2. Yep. So I ain't picking anybody to beat Boise. I want to see Boise. The last time Boise was this big, if they've ever been this big, wasn't it Kellen Moore leading Boise as a quarterback then? He's the young coordinator now, offensive genius. I don't know. I might like him a lot in a few months.
Boise was ranked at one point. They were ranked top 5. They were actually ranked top 5 at one point a few years back.
And they were so entertaining to watch, Tony, as you remember. I mean, they were so easy to root for. So they're not losing. Boise doesn't have a history of losing these kind of games. They know what's at stake. They're going to win that game. I don't know that I would pick SMU to beat Clemson. And this is not one of the great Dabo Swinney teams that, looks like they go into the national championship playoff as a juggernaut. It's not one of those. But if one of them is going to lose, and I think they both will win, I think SMU and Boise will win. That's sort of what I'm rooting for.
So I didn't know anything about UNLV until this morning when I was told that they had lost at UNLV to Boise.
Close game.
But they held Gente to the smallest amount of yards that he's had all year. That was 128 yards, way smaller than everybody else. That his long run in that game was 16. and his shortest long run in any other game was 35. So you say to yourself,
Great
well, maybe
defense.
UNLV,
Good run defense.
maybe they have the formula to beat
Yes.
Boise State. But like you, I feel Boise State at home is going to win and probably win
They're
big.
going to win.
Clemson is a different thing. Clemson is Clemson. They are not afraid of big games. They have been on that stage before. Do I think they're going to win, having just lost to South Carolina last week? No, I don't think so. But if Clemson were to win, it changes things with SMU. Will SMU stay ahead of Alabama? Will that happen? Clemson gets in. Do they then boot Alabama and keep SMU? No, I don't think so, Mike, because SMU will be 0-2 against ranked teams with South Carolina and BYU, Clemson rather, and BYU. And Alabama will still be 3-1 against ranked teams. But take a shot at this. What if Texas drills Georgia, drills them, and that gives Georgia 3 losses? And Alabama has 3 losses too, but Alabama beat Georgia head-to-head. Could you keep SMU and boot Georgia? That's what I'm wondering about. Let's take a break. Coming up, what are the Chargers' chances of beating the Chiefs on Sunday night?
And will the Seahawks beat the Cardinals in the desert? No, they won't.
I find
Spoiler
the college
alert.
thing. I find the college thing intriguing. I know you don't, but I do find it intriguing.
I didn't find it intriguing in October when it was bogus and phony and overstated. It's time for
So
it
you like
now.
it
It's
now.
great now. It was not great a month.
It's time for toss-up. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, finishes the show, stands in front of the bathroom mirror, winks at himself and says, "You still got it, Dr. Naughty." What's first?
Toss up, who you got on Sunday night? The Chargers or the Chiefs?
Okay, so the Chargers are getting 4 points, right? Which is something to consider because Kansas City wins games, but they don't cover. Their last 3 games, I think, went down to the wire. They escaped. They got a blocked field goal against Denver, right? And they beat Carolina, and they beat the Raiders, beat them late. Bad teams. They are, for 11-1 team, their plus minus is plus 54. That is not dynamic when you consider that Detroit is plus 183 and Buffalo is plus 130 or 131, something like that. But, Mike, let me go back to a sentence I just said. The Chiefs win, but they don't cover. If we believe, as Herm Edwards believes, that you play to win the game, why would I go against the Chiefs? I've told you this before. I think they're going to lose at some point, but I never think they're going to lose this one. I never do.
Well, I didn't know we were doing a segment for ESPN Bet, but I'm sure they'll like to hear all this nonsense about covering when the question is Chargers or Chiefs. It wasn't whether somebody's minus 350. I don't even know what that means, by the way.
I took the Chiefs. I took the Chiefs.
You know, what's interesting here, Tony, is wasn't Philadelphia like 10-1 last year? And nobody believed in them at all, right? And the Chiefs or whatever and 1 they are, and there's still a lot of people saying, but they never lose. So it's interesting how perspective changes on these things as to whether somebody simply wants to believe in a team or not. I know you want to believe in Kansas City. I don't particularly believe in Kansas City, but I do know that Kansas City is really good at Arrowhead. And the Chargers, you know, sometimes the Chargers are so unpredictable. They're 2 teams you just cannot go to the bank on. So now I'm on ESPN Bet segment. And those teams are the Cardinals and the Chargers. Over the last 30 years, you take the Cardinals or the Chargers to win, not to cover at your own peril. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs, even though I'm not all that sold on them either right now.
What's the next?
Toss up, who do you favor on Sunday? The Seahawks or the Cardinals?
Okay, so we'll get back to ESPN Bet. It's a home game for Arizona, and they are giving 2.5 points. 2 weeks ago, these 2 teams played in Seattle. Seattle won 16-6. I believe that is 10 points. Seattle has won 3 games in a row. The Seattle team has beaten the Arizona team 6 times in a row, and Arizona has lost 2 games in a row. So my feeling is this. I don't trust either of these teams. I don't trust any team in this division. This division is close, but it's not a good division. It's not like the AFC North or the NFC North. It's just not. It's a division of heartbreak. Every team in it should probably have a better record than they do. San Francisco should be 9-3, and I think they're 5-7. My sense is I really like watching Kyler Murray play. He's very exciting, but he doesn't actually win games, so I'm going to take Seattle.
Yeah, I don't know where you led me on all of that, over the river and through the woods. The Cardinals are not going to lose this game. They're going to win. Again, you can't count on the Cardinals to do either thing you think they're going to do.
You said you don't trust them.
The Cardinals, I don't trust them. The pattern is right now for the Cardinals to lose. And they're not going to do what you think they're going to do. The Cardinals are always going to go the opposite way on you. They've lost their last 2 games. They start to flatten out. You go, oh, wait a minute. Kyler Murray was so good 4 weeks ago. Tomorrow they'll win. And then, or Sunday they'll win. And then they may win the next 2 games. And you'll get to the point where they win 3 in a row. And you go, oh, the Cardinals are on a roll. Then it's time to flip-flop. I just told you about the Chargers and the Cardinals. Whatever the trending is, go the other way. Cardinals win in the desert in that division matchup against the Seahawks. You don't need ESPN bet.
I'm going to take Seattle. I'm going to take the 2.5. That's it. Let's take one last break. Still to come, the Lakers may face an added challenge against the Hawks tonight.
And was the SEC right to ban Bevo from tomorrow's SEC title game?
So that's the big
Lakers are going to get
cattle, right?
Tonight.
That's the big Longhorn cattle. Did they ban the Tiger? Like when LSU had the Tiger, did they ban the Tiger?
I think the Tiger often gets banned.
Well, that's precedent. Happy time, people. Happy 27th birthday, Sabrina Ionescu. A few years ago, Ionescu was the #1 overall draft pick in the WNBA draft out of Oregon. She only played 3 games as a rookie before getting injured, but in those games, Ionescu averaged 18 points. In the last 3 full seasons she's played for the Liberty, Ionescu has made 3 All-Star teams and averaged around 17.5 points. Ionescu was top 10 this season in scoring and assists. She became even more celebrated by taking on Steph Curry in a shooting contest at All-Star Weekend. Ionescu's 3-point shot won Game 3 of this year's final against Minnesota, but she suffered through a terrible game in the clincher, shooting 1 of 19 from the field.
So that may be true, but you know what? The big deal for Sabrina Ionescu is she's got her own shoe. The Sabrina 1 from Nike and now the Sabrina 2. And let me just tell you, it's a popular shoe. My son came home. I go, whose shoes are those? I haven't seen those shoes you're wearing. That's right. Young boys and young men are wearing the Sabrina Ionescu shoes. Nice. Great to see. Nice. Great to see.
Happy anniversary, Derrick Henry. On this day 6 years ago, the powerful running back set a Tennessee franchise record with 238 yards rushing, including a 99-yard touchdown run in a 30-9 win over Jacksonville. Henry finished that game with 4 touchdowns. In January of 2021, Henry set the Titans' bar higher, rushing for 250 yards in a win over Houston. Henry has gone over 200 yards 6 times. Now he's with Baltimore. Henry went 199 yards this season against Buffalo, including a franchise record 87-yard touchdown run. Henry has run 1,407 rushing yards in 240 carries this season. That's second to Saquon Barkley, who has 1,499 yards in 246 carries. Wilbon, any Todd Monken comments?
I'm going to avoid that, but I'm going to ask you something. Look, I only have very faint memories of the great Jim Brown. But the one thing I'm going to say Derrick Henry does better than anybody, and maybe you'll say Jim Brown was better, is the stiff arm, because he puts you down. Derrick Henry throws you to the ground. Was Jim Brown's stiff arm that good?
No, well, Jim Brown was past you. He didn't have to do it. He went by you. You didn't have your hands on him. Happy trails, Luke Richardson. Wilbon, your Blackhawks fired their head coach after starting the season 8-16-2, the worst in the NHL. The team's big problem has been offense. Hawks are averaging just 2.4 goals per game, and 19-year-old franchise player Connor Bedard has only 5 goals across 26 games. The interim head coach would be Anders Sorensen, who the team called up from its minor league affiliate, the Rockford Ice Hogs. The Bruins have gone 6-2 since firing Jim Montgomery, and the Blues have gone 4-0-1 since hiring Montgomery. Wilbon, do you expect a similar turnaround here?
I don't know, Tony, but when you're the worst team in the league and you are not getting anywhere near the best out of Connor Bedard, who you've seen play better for the previous coach, you got to go. That's justifiable. There's not the outcry as there was for getting rid of another coach in Chicago last week, but I understand.
Big finish very quickly. LeBron James listed as questionable for the Lakers at the Hawks tonight. Is that significant?
The Hawks may bum rush the Lakers anyway, and if LeBron doesn't play, you can almost count on it. In response to Ohio State rumors, your boy Urban Meyer says he has no interest in coaching again. Do you believe him?
I actually don't believe anything Urban Meyer says. The SEC banned Texas from bringing Bevo to the SEC title game. Does that make sense to you?
I'm glad. I don't care about these stupid, mascot animals. They charged each other, or Bevo charged Uga in a Sugar Bowl. Get them out. Get them both out. The Wizards lost for the 16th straight time. Your thoughts?
They stink. And how dare they unveil District of Columbia shirts last night? Why don't you have Alexandria, Virginia, where you tried to move? Last one, LA Galaxy, New York Red Bulls meeting the MLS Cup final tomorrow. Who you got now?
Oh, you mean Messi's not in? I'll take the Galaxy playing at home just down the road here.
We're out of time.
Freeway.
Try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, knuckleheads. Have a great weekend.